Welcome, everyone, or welcome back
Hey,
to
guys.
Fear Given and Rethemed. We are your hosts, Casey,
And Sean.
and today we will be talking about a local haunt, well, local to us, Gainesville Fear Garden. We're excited to showcase this haunt because we love it, and the people who run it are amazing.
They are indeed. We've met them a few times now,
Yeah.
and they become our favorite people the more we talk to them.
Yeah, they're really cool, really nice people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the backstory of where they started, and I don't know everything. This is just kind of what we learned from them and from going to their haunt last year and this year. So last year, I don't even know how we came upon it. I guess it just came up on Facebook, and we were like, "Oh, this sounds really cool," or something like that.
Yeah, it was either on Facebook or Instagram, and the premise behind it sounded really, really interesting.
Yeah, nothing like we had ever done before.
It wasn't our typical Halloween Horror Nights or 13th Floor. It was its own completely separate, different type of haunt experience.
Yeah. So on their website, it said that they were a Halloween experiment, and they had like a backyard budget tent type setup.
It seemed sketchy at first,
It does.
but we trusted the process.
Yeah, I was like, what's the worst that could happen, you know?
Right.
So on their website, for last year, it said, "Hi, we're a spooky backyard speakeasy. It's a little makeshift pop-up thing, just a cluster of canopies framed by a fence, bathed in moonlight, all outdoors. Come for beers, wines, malts, mocktails, coffees, energy drinks, sodas, and kombucha. Also games, free popcorn, and a little projector room. But there's a catch. Entry must be earned. To locate the gate and join our event, you'll have to survive the Dark Story Tent."
Dark Story Tent.
Hi, my name is Ken. I was a psychology professor at UF for a while. Do you know why people choose to be scared? What is it about the morbid and macabre, about shadows and specters, darkness and madness? Why did you come here tonight? See, I think we haven't figured that out yet, that the science of psychology hasn't figured that out yet, and that the answers are inside you, somewhere.
On their website, it did say kind of like what it was going to be, so that we weren't like just showing up and not knowing what to expect, because nobody with anxiety likes that. So it said you wear wireless headphones and blocked out goggles, and that's when we were like, what? This is so cool. And it all happens in your headphones in private, but that doesn't mean you can't share the experience. Everyone in the group, minimum of 2, maximum of 6 people, will hear the same thing, the same broadcast at precisely the same time. And through that, there was a live tour guide, but we weren't able to hear them through the headphones, so it was like a one-way communication line. We were guided through the tent with rope attached, and the group either in front of you or behind you was right there for guidance. So, like, I think you were before me, and I was hanging on to you.
Yeah, so the first year we were I think we were holding on to pool noodles or some sort of cue rope.
Right, so that you weren't, like...
Yeah, and part of last year's event that I thought was the coolest part was near probably the middle to the end. So I was constantly checking the ropes the entire time because each of us had our individual rope, and they were just clipped together.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, when you saw that, my mind thought, oh, well, they're clipped together because we're going to be detached at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really think too much of it once the event started. So to me, it wasn't super surprising when we got about midway through, and I think they either said drop the rope or you were disconnected and now you were on your own, which you and the other people that we went with, which were my brother and my mom, I think my mom clung to my brother, you clung to me, because it was kind of a jarring experience.
It was. I was like, oh no, where do I go?
You're being guided the entire time, and all of a sudden, you don't have that guidance. And now you are told to stumble through this room, feel the walls, and you have to figure out your way out. So to me, that was one of my favorite moments during last year's event of like, now you're on your own. That one guiding light that you had at your disposal is gone. You have no other resources.
Right.
That was phenomenal to me.
And they made it seem like, they kind of called it the experiment, which was like a psychological experiment.
Yeah.
They actually partnered with a University of Florida, excuse me, professor of psychology. So she was studying what happens when fear mixes with fun. That's what it said on their website.
He or she?
It said she. So,
okay.
I don't know. Maybe it's...
So one of the creators of the event, Ken, is, I believe, an adjunct professor of psychology at UF.
So maybe they were just working with them.
Yeah, it could have been him, or it could have been an actual full-time professor at the school.
Yeah. Either way, it was a psychological experiment where they're trying to see what happens
Yeah,
in your
documented
mind.
research was taking place during the event. You had surveys pre and post the event, I believe. At least you did this year. Last year, I know we did at least a post feedback form.
Yeah.
So it's actual research that you're contributing towards, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I really, really liked that. I was obviously skeptical at first. I didn't know what to expect.
Knowing that it was almost hosted with UF as a partner gave you a little more ease and comfort because you didn't feel like you were going into some random person's backyard.
Right. And I have worked with UF before. You went to UF for a semester.
Yep.
So...
One semester.
So we were kind of excited to kind of see where that took them. So last year when we arrived, I think we went on like a Wednesday night or a Sunday night. I don't even know.
Yeah, we didn't go on a super popular night. We had pre-booked tickets, but we made sure that we weren't going to hit the crowds. And I think we did it fairly early in the season as well. So I don't even know if anything changed throughout the season their first year. And if they did, we had no idea. We only went the one time. Go.
Yeah, but when we arrived, it wasn't busy at all. So that's why I was like, okay, well, let's just see how this goes. So we were greeted at a tent and got set up with headphones and goggles and a rope to hold between us, like you said. And I really liked this because what I think about this when we go or when we first started going, it was like an ASMR experience. And as you know, I have an ASMR channel and I like ASMR. I listen to it like every night. And I like when, I don't want to say this, I don't like when people touch me, but I like the touching of, just...
You like the ASMR experience of, the head scratcher thing.
Yeah.
The feather on your
just
arm
the sensory.
Or something like that.
Yeah, the sensory.
That full sensory touch experience.
Yeah, and I like not knowing if I'm blindfolded, I like not knowing if something's going to touch me. So, when it does, it's like, ooh. And it's not sexual or anything like that. It's not.
You buy into the entire ASMR experience.
Yes.
And
they probably don't
can't wrap
even.
my head around it.
They're like, what? ASMR? What? No, this has nothing to do with ASMR, but it kind of does.
To you, that's how you take it because you're not scared by that sort of thing. Whereas other people, they'll walk into a cobweb and they're like, ooh, I don't like that.
Well, that's different, but cobweb is different.
A lot of people are triggered by the sheer sensory, even the tiniest little touch.
Right.
Whereas
and it's
you feel like it's an experience for you. It's not a jarring feeling.
What is that?
Yeah.
I want to know. But no, see, it didn't freak me out or anything. I was actually laughing most of the time because I was like, this is so funny. I don't know what's going to happen next. At one point, I just stood there and was like, okay, I'm just going to stand here and wait for somebody to move me.
Or you felt like you were in a safe environment.
Yeah, no, at no point did I feel like I was in danger or I was going to get murdered or anything like that.
Right, and you're tuned into the story because you have the headphones on, so you don't have anything, you're not distracted by anything else. The only things that are going on is you're holding onto this rope and you're being tugged along and you're told to follow wherever this rope feels like it's being pulled to.
Yeah.
And you have this story being told in your ears. And that's, like, those are the only two senses that you can really rely on is touch and audio.
Yeah, it was a very interesting experience. So, and it wasn't really a haunted house attraction, not their first year.
It was a psychological experiment.
It was a psychological experiment, but it went really well with the, you know, the vibe of October and
yeah, it definitely
haunted,
fits to the Halloween season.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I'm sure it would have its place year round.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool at like festivals in terms of like conventions or something like that.
Yeah.
Where you could hide the actual what was going on until the end.
Right.
But keep that bar experience. I think there's a place for it year round with the right crowd.
I agree. And it's a very, a lot of people aren't going to like this. And
no, it's kind of a niche audience.
Yeah, it is.
But
you don't know it until you try. And it's not like
right.
there's nothing that's going to hurt you. I mean.
No, there's nothing.
They're not there to.
You're not in harm at all. There are tons of people around you to watch out for your safety.
Yeah, for sure. And I like the bar at the end where they had it really cute, set up nicely. They gave out free stickers and cups for marketing, which I thought was very clever.
Yeah, we still have. Last year they were cups that were temperature changing cups. So last year they turned pink. This year they turned green, and we love those cups. They're perfect size. We use them for drinking. We use them for painting, all sorts of stuff. I love those.
Yeah, and then that way, you know, when people like see that, oh, what's that, you know, or like
we
bought
t-shirts,
a shirt. Yeah.
We put stickers on my guitar case and a few other places.
We loved it so much. We're your hype people.
Yeah.
We're probably not the only ones, but I just
really
thought it was such a good idea.
When they announced it for 2023.
Yes.
Because you don't know if it's a haunt's first year.
Yeah.
You have no idea whether they're going to make it to year 2. So when these guys did, we were super excited. So I'm going to talk about a little about my experience the first year.
Do tell.
So the first year, I agree. I was pretty nervous. I didn't know what to expect. We're pretty over the typical haunted attraction. Like, we know we can look around a corner. There's probably going to be a jump scare.
I agree.
If it looks like there's a hole in the wall, it probably is. And it's probably for an actor. It's probably a boo hole. So a lot of that stuff is lost on us at this point. We're not scared the same ways we used to be. So this one was really, really cool. Again, we probably bring it up like every 20 minutes of this podcast, but I love stories. So for this one
really? You do?
I know, it's weird. So for this one to be very heavily story-based, and especially audio, I figured this was either going to be really, really good or really, really bad. And to me, it was absolutely a hit.
Yeah.
Audio is one of my favorite things in horror movies. I love listening to composers talk about how they came up with different sound effects or different melodies for horror movies. My favorite composers right now are the Newton Brothers. They've done Dr. Sleep. They've done one of the Ouija movies. They do pretty much anything that Mike Flanagan does for Netflix. So they've done all the audio for Midnight Mass, Hill House,
such a
Bly
good show.
Manor.
If you've never seen Midnight Mass, I highly recommend.
And even the new one, The Fall of the House of Usher, they did all the audio for that. Phenomenal composers.
Yeah.
They're not actually brothers. They've got an interview on YouTube that talks about how they come up with their name and why they chose it. So check that out if you can find it.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really, really neat. So because of that, audio is my favorite thing in horror movies, and especially in a haunt. It makes a huge impact if it's done well. So that was really cool. Really looked forward to that the first year. Aside from that, when we showed up to the check-in tent last year, we got to choose different wristbands. So you could either choose to be touched or choose not to be touched.
Oh, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, so
I'm glad you brought that up.
I don't know what the experience would have been had we not been touched.
And it took me some convincing.
Yeah, Tad and I, my brother, we were all in. As soon as they gave us the option, he jumped at it, absolutely.
Because I didn't know what it meant by, like, touching.
Right. We almost thought, like, maybe McCamey Manor, maybe they're going to like push you
Yeah, I
somewhere.
was
We
not
had no
sure.
idea how rough it was going to be. So it was kind of an odd thought to think, well, maybe we will be touched, maybe we won't. But either way, I
Yeah.
knew it was going to amp it up, and I wanted
At least
to
they
be
told
scared.
you and got your permission first before.
Yeah. So before the actual event started, we probably had 15, 20 minutes to wait in the queue. We got to kind of lounge around their picnic tables. They had a lot of cool decor last year. But before the actual our session started, we had all chosen touch.
Yeah.
So we were kind of all in on that. I would have regretted it if we hadn't done it.
Yeah, probably. Because it's kind of hard to not to experience the whole experience without being touched.
Which is why, for this year, they took away that option.
Yeah.
And it became part of the standard procedure.
Right.
Like, you will be touched.
Right.
And by the time you get to the end of the event, you understand what being touched actually means. They're not laying hands on you. They're not doing anything harmful. They're not pushing you downstairs or anything like that or shoving you. All it really means is
Respectful touching.
they're playing on your sensory or your touch
Yeah, your senses.
sensory experiment.
Right.
So it could be anything from they pull a limb off of a tree outside and they're brushing the leaves against your face when the story's talking about you walking through a forest and a branch hits you in the face. It
Yeah.
could be
Whack.
right. It could be a pool noodle going across your shins if you're wading through something. It could be a mannequin arm where it feels like an actual person holding your hand. When we
Yeah.
were sitting on the pews at one point, they
This
put
was the second. This was
yeah,
this
this
year.
was this year. They put an actual like fake mannequin hand
I thought that
in
was
my
so
hand
funny.
and made me hold it.
Yeah.
So not to say they won't put their hands on your shoulders or something like that. They may have amped it up a little more after our first experience this year, just because we knew them, they knew who we were,
Yeah.
and we were purposely like, we want to experience this again. We want to know if anything's changed. We want to know what all the different variations are of what you guys can do
Yeah.
to correlate with the story as you're going through. So I thought the story last year was really, really well done. It was easy to follow. It was cohesive. They even sent a story out, I believe. I think they actually sent it out. I know they talked about they were going to send a follow-up story.
I don't remember that.
I think it was all tied to my email. So I
Oh, okay.
believe they sent something. I don't remember if it was the story or if it was just the feedback. But either way, to me, the focusing on the psychological aspect of what it means to be scared, who do you cling to when you're being scared, a lot of it was relationship-based,
Yeah.
the
Like,
feedback. So
are you close with this person? Like,
Right.
do you?
did you gravitate towards them? Did you feel closer during the event? Did you feel closer after the event? I know Casey and I, we talked the entire 45-minute ride home
Yeah.
about the experience and how cool it was and how fun it was. It
Yeah,
wasn't a
it's a di-
typical
it's so
haunted
different,
attraction.
yeah.
It was its own thing, kind of like David S. Pumpkins, which we didn't talk about in the Halloween Horror Nights episode, but
Any questions?
there was a David S. Pumpkins at the event near the Peacock Bar.
Yeah, but it's literally just a person dressed up in a David S. Pumpkin suit that you can get from Spirit Halloween.
Yeah. Which I
So
think
I
all he
wasn't-
said was any questions based on other
Yeah,
people that
I'm
we
not
talked
waiting
to.
in line for that.
So anyways, enough about Halloween Horror Nights. Back to Gainesville Fear Garden. Let's see, what else did I write down in my notes? So excluding any time spent with meeting the creators, Ken and Katie, and how they run the event, if I were just to be an outsider and just experience the event, I would still love it. Like, this would be one of my top events. I would put this
Oh, yeah.
on the docket to go to every year, right alongside Halloween Horror Nights, right alongside 13th Floor. Like, this has become our staple event that we've just kind of included in our lineup for Halloween.
Yeah, and I was really excited when they came out with this theme this year,
Yeah.
which will lead into what it's called the Haunt Lab.
Yeah.
So basically, it's still marketed as a beer and wine bar filled with horror props, which, I mean, who doesn't like that? And on the website, it says, and I quote, "Behind the bar, we've built a test kitchen of sorts, a laboratory for the development of novel methods for the efficient elicitation," did I say that right?
Yeah. You got it.
Of terror. You'll be fine. Just a few quick tests, I promise. 30 to 40 minutes tops, and you only have to wear a blindfold for part of it. It's very professional and not at all sketchy.
When you say that, it makes me think it's sketchy.
Right, exactly.
But it's
that's funny. The relevant authorities definitely know that we're doing this. You'll be fine, end quote. So,
I love their sarcasm through there.
yes.
Because it's just, if you haven't gone through
It's
it
fine.
before, you're already on edge.
It's very professional.
Whether you pick up sarcasm or not,
Yeah.
it's funny how they're phrasing. Like, if you don't even have to listen to somebody say it. You reading it and the way they wrote that just elicits sarcasm, and it is phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah, it's funny.
And even their marketing throughout the event is very on par with that. It's
Yeah.
very much the same vibe.
Yeah, and I was, like I said, I was super excited. I was actually really impressed with the changes that they made.
Absolutely.
By still keeping the original idea behind the experience, but making it a little bit more haunted, kind of, not haunted, but like, horror themed.
Yeah, and we'll probably go into a little more detail now, since the event is closed for the season, than we would have during the time where you could actually experience the event for yourself.
Yeah.
Because now it's over, we're not going to ruin anything, and we have no idea what they're going to do next year, what they're
No.
going to keep, what they're going to change.
I hope they keep, obviously they're going to keep.
I mean, I'm down for anything they decide to do.
Yeah.
I'm all in. I think it's going to be really cool what they decide to do differently or keep the same.
Yeah, so definitely keep them on your list for next year.
Yep, and we'll talk about them more
Hopefully.
when we keep doing this podcast throughout this next year.
Yeah.
We'll try to give updates when we see tickets go live. We'll try to post links so that everybody can get in on the event and experience it for themselves next year in 2024.
Yeah. So this year, when we arrived, so we checked in. It was in a different location this year because they didn't have a tent. They upgraded to
Yeah, they kind of outgrew their first year, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Good
So they still had a tent but it was like the waiting area check-in. But then they had another, I guess it was like a warehouse of sorts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we arrived, they had really cool horror decor, a fun fog cannon. So it was very like interactive with some tables where you could sit and wait, and a little bar. And then they had games and stuff you could play. So once it was our turn, we were placed on like a bridge thing, and given our goggles and headphones. And right away from the experience, they like heighten your senses. On that bridge. I'm not going to spoil it because...
Well, the event's over.
I
so
know,
you can
but
go
what
ahead
if they do this next year? And,
All right.
you know?
Yeah, fair enough.
So,
They elicit your sensories.
yeah. Throughout
right
the
off the
whole...
bat.
Yeah, right off the bat, they do that. And then throughout the whole thing, they do. There was more touching to heighten our senses, which I think it's needed because it's...
Yeah, and it
You're not
correlated to
gonna-
the story
Yeah.
very specifically this year. Last year it was kind of almost a touch just for the sake of being touched.
Yeah.
This year it was very deliberate as to what part of the story they were on, what the type of touching they were doing were. It
Right.
matched up really, really well this year compared to the first year.
And my favorite part was so they guide you through, the place, and then, you don't know where you're being guided to. You don't know where you're walking. You don't know what's going on. You're just listening to the story, and you're walking at the same time.
Yeah, you're doing a lot at one time.
Yeah, and
Way
so
more than you think.
and you don't know what's going to happen. So that's in itself is pretty scary.
In the sense, they tried really hard to add sense in certain areas that correlated with the story, which was
Yeah.
really, really cool. They weren't super strong.
They weren't, but it's really
but I
hard
don't
to
think
get
they
those
needed
stints.
to be.
No.
And also the distribution system they were using. We talked to them a little bit afterwards, and we tried to get one. I'm not going to name the brand or the type, But for us, it didn't work. For them, they did not enjoy the system.
No.
And they ended up switching to a different style, which did work.
Yeah. So my favorite part was being sat down.
Yep. And they were on church pews.
Yeah, or chair, whatever.
Or
and
chairs,
then,
depending on how many people and what broke.
yeah, and which made me listen to the story more because I was so, like, walking and trying to
You just
figure
don't wanna
out.
fall when
Yeah,
you're
that,
walking.
and, like, I am not a good multitasker. So it's hard for me to listen to the story and figure out, what I'm doing or where I'm going at the same time. So I really liked that they, like, had you sit down and listen to a good majority of the story.
And the timing of the story was really, really well done, where the guides knew exactly where you needed to be in the walkthrough during the part of the story that almost kind of led up to the real story. So there was a big kind of initial introduction about what is this experience, do this, kind of test you in this way, do that, test you in that way.
We're going to take a break for a second. Someone's going to orient you. They're going to move your body, your shoulders into position. And then when you feel them tap 3 times on your shoulder, you go ahead and sit down. Trust sit. Like trust fall, where you fall back and you're blind, you close your eyes and you fall back. And if someone doesn't hate you, they catch you. You got to trust that there's a chair behind you.
And then they kind of set you down and they said, all right, this is the actual story of this event. And at that point, you were seated, you were still, you could focus on the story. And what was really cool about the story was we went, 3 times?
This year, yeah.
Yeah, I think we went 3 times this year, so clearly we're absolute fans. They opened up a behind the screens tour style. We jumped over that.
Yeah, which I don't know how popular that was for them.
I don't know if anybody else did it, but
I know they didn't really know what to expect at that point. But
no, but it was so cool to go behind the scenes.
I think every haunt should market that, whether they
because at the very least
know it's going to be used or not.
Even if you get one couple to go, chances are they could be super good friends of yours. Mm-hmm. So I took this as an opportunity of whatever the cost was, we were going to pay it, and I didn't realize that we were going to make a friendship out of it or start networking with haunt owners. Mm-hmm. Now that we know that's where we want to head and we want to make a commercial haunt, I think having those networks and those friendships will be huge.
Yeah,
for us.
I agree.
Even from just the learning aspect.
Just to learn and
we don't
swap
intend
ideas.
we don't intend to steal any ideas.
No.
We're super appreciative of the technology that's there and the concepts of haunting. Mm-hmm. So for us, it's learning a different way to do something. It's learning something that we didn't think about with a certain mechanism or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a rabbit trail, but
as always.
What I appreciated about the story this year was that they changed it a little bit throughout the actual event timeline. Mm-hmm. So the first time we went, it was mostly one voice throughout the entire audio experience.
Yeah.
And then when we went the third time, they had changed it, and it was a few different voices, and it was a little clearer, it was a little more concise. I could understand the effects, and I was more focused because it wasn't the same voice throughout. It triggered your brain to almost reset when you heard a different voice.
Right.
So it was really
very smart,
cool for me because I don't think a lot of haunts analyze themselves mid-season and go, what's working, what's not.
A lot can't because you're not in you can't just change a story and set. Yes, you can take some stuff out and add some stuff in, but 13th floor, for example, you can't just change anything.
You're right. It is a little more difficult for certain venues.
Right.
For them, though, I still felt like re-recording the entire central part of their story, the entire audio, was completely updated and changed.
Okay.
So that was really cool to me.
Yeah.
That's kind of a big feat to accomplish and to implement into your haunt.
Yeah, that's when you know people actually care about
Right.
the quality
Yeah, the
of their
deliberate
experience.
making it better through the season and not just being like, well, we got it wrong, but
Yeah,
sorry.
well, let's try again next year,
No,
whatever.
so it was
But,
already
yeah.
good, and it just made it better that they were self-critical to the point of being productive about resolving what they saw as shortcomings.
Yeah.
So that was incredible.
So let's talk a little bit about like the behind the scenes part of it, like what they were like showing us and stuff like that.
Sure. I have one thing I want to add
Yeah.
to this year that I thought was really cool.
Go ahead, girl.
So they didn't have it the first and second time we went, but they did the third one. Was they had, instead of emailing you the feedback forms, they actually had monitors set up where you could fill out those.
Oh yeah.
Fill out those forms before the event or before the experience, and then after. And then they also had a QR code where you could submit your email, and they would actually send you the scare cam footage of you walking through the parts where you were blindfolded.
Yeah, that's so
to
cool.
see your reactions, your group's reactions. For me, and I think a lot of other people, because they made a point to say it was typically sent to your junk folder when you signed up.
Yeah.
And for me, it was.
Yeah,
But
me
the
too.
video was free of charge. It was edited pretty well.
Yeah. It was a freebie. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I loved it. Completely free. I would have paid for that, and I think a lot of other people would.
Yeah.
I mean, at least a few dollars.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool to like look at
Right.
it and
If you
be
don't
like,
know
you
what's
know.
going on, you get to
Right.
see what was going on in the bar at the end of the event.
Yes, which I thought was very clever.
Yeah.
And
You got to kind of participate.
yeah, you're
as much as you
participating.
safely could.
Right. And it's
Yeah.
in participating, basically, they give you like,
You get to pull back
Little-
the curtain.
yeah, you get little, like
Little props to kind of.
props. What were they, like leaves and and vines and stuff, where you
Yeah.
can,
You got to be the toucher at that point.
Yeah.
But in a safe environment, like you were.
right. And you had to, you have to be respectful. Like
Yeah.
I'm glad that they like made,
They set boundaries.
they set boundaries.
After opening weekend. So
Right,
our first
so
time
I
was
don't know-
opening weekend.
Yeah, and I don't know what happened or if they had other things, but I saw this one girl like flick somebody, and I'm like, no, don't
Yeah.
do that. Like, that's
But you
rude
like
for
to
one.
assume people are going to behave properly when
Yeah.
given the opportunity.
I know,
and-
but then you give them alcohol and
yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
that was
there
a really
are
cool thing.
some-
They
yeah.
implemented rules and kind of regulations.
yeah, just
After
be
that,
nice. Like,
so
don't
the
flick
second time we
somebody.
went,
Do you want to be
that-
flicked? No, I doubt
Right.
it. So
You couldn't touch people like hand to hand type thing.
yeah,
You had to use a prop. It had to be within
yeah, be respectful.
a certain confines of respecting.
Yeah,
So sorry, the behind the scenes.
yeah. Oh, sorry, you're looking
do
at me.
you want me to go
So, no, I can say a little bit. So we were able to like see everything happening behind the scenes, like staff leading the blind groups through the building. And it was really cool to see where we walked and what the area looked like. Because obviously when you're going through, you don't have any idea what you're walking through.
Yeah.
Unless you go for a second time and you know. But as when we were like behind the scenes, we were able to guide a group ourselves and see what it was like to be the person who like scares them, or like, touches them with the props. So they use like fake branches, air compressor, fake hands,
Mannequin hands.
the mannequin hands. Yeah. So it was just really fun to like kind of see what the staff like actually does.
Yeah. And something we didn't mention about this year's was midway through the experience, they flipped the script. And you actually took your goggles
Yeah.
off. You kept your headphones on for a little longer. And then a short time after that, you took the headphones off.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when it transitioned into, you were still being analyzed. There was still a researcher by your side taking notes, like legit notes. They weren't just an actor hired to act like you're writing something on the
Yeah.
pad. They were taking genuine.
Maybe. I mean, who knows?
No, they were, because they were actually from UF. Like, they were from the psychology department. That was one of the questions I asked was, are they just, they're just supposed to look like they're taking notes, or are they really? And I was told they were. Like, they were for real. So the whole experience, kind of by the end, you were in that stereotypical haunted attraction.
Yeah,
But
which
it
was
was
a nice
still
change.
playing on the psychological aspect. So your group was being split up. Your group was being assigned different tasks.
Tested, yeah.
Yeah, different tests to
Assigned.
perform. And it was anything from, would you shock somebody a lot or would you shock somebody a little bit? Would you shock yourself if given the opportunity? And
Yep.
we learned we will. And if you shock yourself, you then proceed to make everybody else in your group shock themselves
look what
by
I
being
just
like, hey, what's
did."
this? You should do this too.
Oh my
So
god.
very much peer pressure. But
Yeah,
I think
that's so
we
funny.
managed to have everybody that we went with the first time, the second time, the third time, everybody got shocked by the end. And I don't know.
Did they take that thing out after the
No,
third time?
they repositioned it in a different
Oh,
place, and they
okay.
added.
Because I wasn't
a
about to go back and do that.
Right. They added a different one where it was a handheld button that shocked you. So like you hold on to it, almost like the sticks of gum you used to have in like middle
Oh,
school.
yeah, I hate those things.
But either way, it was not just a vibration. It was an actual shock. So
Yeah.
I did it once. I don't think I did it a second time. But
Oh, it definitely gives you a little perk. Whoop!
yeah, it was. So doing those little tests and experiments on your group.
What are you looking at?
I was looking at the doll. I didn't realize you put
I
a doll right there. So
moved
it's been in the
her.
corner of my eye. And that's the Reagan one. So it always
Reagan.
freaks me out a little in my peripheral.
Sorry.
So anyways, having that at the end of this year's experience was really cool because it gave it a little more dimension, a little more kind of pizzazz, knowing that they had their niche idea that they started with last year of the blindfolded, the audio, but then they were able to transition that into the typical experience that people would expect at a haunted attraction,
Yeah.
but they did it in their way. So it still wasn't a copycat of anybody else. It was very much along their same experimental psychological vibe. So that was really
Yeah.
cool.
And I'm sure they had their, like we've had our mess ups and stuff like that. I'm sure that they're going to take, criticism and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So our dog just farted.
Yeah, it doesn't smell good. So something about the
Dog.
behind the scenes tour that stuck with me when we met Ken and Katie. So our tour started with somebody on their staff that ran their HR department and kind of managed all of the people at the event. And the more we asked questions, we were then passed off to Katie, which
They were probably like,
was-
these people.
Right. We don't ask the
what
typical
heck?
questions. I don't think we come at it from a home haunter perspective.
Yeah, like, let me see the.
We're asking about the controllers. We're
Yeah.
asking about what lights do you guys use? What programs do you use to sync the audio? How did you record this? What microphones did you use? All the technical stuff that most people, it's not even in their head to think about.
Yeah.
So we were quickly passed off to Katie, which ran most of their technical equipment, from the controllers to the actuators to all of that was mechanically functional. We got to see a ton of stuff behind the scenes there, and we realized most haunts are very similar. They're run off of duct tape, zip ties,
Yeah.
and fright props.
In which I like their idea of being blindfolded for the first part of
Yes.
it, because you can do whatever you want and they
Exactly.
wouldn't.
The sky is the limit.
Yeah.
And it's super interchangeable. So after we met with Katie, we were then passed off to Ken, which is the main creator of the haunt. Ken and Katie are husband and wife, and Ken said it best, I think, in our experience when he said, "You're our people, like you're haunt family now."
Yeah.
To me, that spoke volumes. They were obviously super passionate about haunting and about what it means to actually scare somebody. They weren't just doing it for a business. They weren't just doing it for the money.
Yeah.
They were investing their heart and soul into
Oh,
the
you can
event.
tell that they
Yeah.
really invested and they were so passionate.
Yeah.
And
meeting
that
other
must-
haunters with a passion is,
Right.
like, I am an introvert probably 95% of the time. But if I find somebody or meet somebody that has that passion for something that I have a passion for as well, I feel like my social level increases. It's the exact opposite of an energy vampire. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes
I
it can be a
wanna be
bit too
social.
much for me, honestly. But I have to get used to it. It's something that, like, you know, and I'm just like an introvert, you know?
Yeah,
If you know
left
me, you know that.
exhausted.
Yeah.
And I left absolutely wired.
Yeah. And not that, like, I, like, didn't like talking to them or anything.
No,
It was
you just have so much.
there's just so much, like, I don't know. I just get overstimulated. So, like, I mean, even when I go to church, like, I get overstimulated.
Yeah, there's a certain point where it's
There's a
just
certain
too
point
much
where
for
it's
you.
like, okay, I'm ready to just like sleep, which is what I love to do. But anyways, yeah, you can definitely tell that they're passionate and they really like what they do. And it was crazy to me that they like kept it, like they did it like every single night, didn't they?
They did it way more nights out of the week
Than
than I think
most
any
haunts
other
do.
haunted attraction we went to this year.
Yeah, and that's just like
which
a lot
is
of work.
incredible. So the downside of that is they weren't able to go to a lot of other neighboring haunts in the area.
Yeah.
So a lot of neighboring haunts would come to them and kind of partner up and say, you know, we'll share your flyer if you'll share ours.
Yeah, which is so nice.
So we learned about several different haunts just because of that partnership that they had developed.
Yep.
And we even got our events flyer hung up at their event. We were a little skittish to do it. I wish we would have made the decision earlier to put it up there.
We just
but
didn't, you know, it was our first year. We didn't know what to expect. And
Yeah. So
we didn't
moving
want
forward-
a whole bunch of people coming out and us being like, oh, crap.
Right.
Like,
So moving forward,
the fire marshal comes out, what is this?
we do have plans to meet up with them in the future and try to figure out what is a way that we can partner with them in some way or another.
Yeah.
That's part of the haunt idea that we're trying to come up with and research. And
Hopefully we haven't scared them away.
I guess as long as they answer our text, we'll be fine.
I guess so.
So yeah, we're really excited to see how that relationship goes in the future. I know we have plans to meet up at Transworld. They went for the first time last year.
Yeah.
And Ken was blown away. Katie's hoping, I believe, that she gets to go with
Yeah,
him
I
this
hope
year.
she does get to go.
So it'd be really cool if we can join up for dinner with them, and then we'll talk about what we learned at Transworld when we get there.
Yeah, so yeah, overall we really enjoyed their experience and their haunt. So hopefully they get it done next year, but we will link the website,
Yep.
their website and their Instagram and all their good stuff in the show notes.
Yep.
So make sure you take a look at that and share, and hopefully we can get more people
Yeah,
over there.
we'll keep you updated when it gets closer to 2024's event,
Yeah.
and we'll make sure that when
Which is
tickets
right
go
around the
live-
corner. Just kidding.
Yeah. Well,
It
we
does
got
come
11
fast,
months.
but especially when you're like thinking about what you're going to do next year, it does come really fast.
Yeah, because you've got to plan
You got to plan.
essentially now in order
Yeah.
to pull it off a lot of times.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sure they're
Halloween
already-
forever.
Yep. Always should be.
Christmas! No, I'm just kidding. No, I am really excited for Christmas. We put up our, side note, we put up our black Christmas tree inside
We
of
did.
our studio.
We did. It's
So we have one thing that's
essentially our
Christmas.
Halloween tree. In our actual house, we have it already decked out in Christmas, even though it's early November.
Yeah,
And
if you
it's
know
great.
me, you know I love Halloween, but I also love Christmas.
Yeah,
like
so we give
I'm
it a full
obsessed.
2 months.
Yeah, like I just
Halloween
love
for
Christmas.
10 months, Christmas for 2.
I'm just a holiday person.
Yeah. January, it gets rough.
It's the
That
holiday
depression.
season.
The holiday depression in January, it's hard.
It does.
All right, Casey, would you like to sing us a song as we end this
It's
episode?
the holiday season, so hoop-de-doo and dickory-dock. And I'll just stop right now.
I don't know if you don't know the words, you just only know the inappropriate ones. All right, we'll see you later, guys.
Thanks for listening, guys. Make sure
Yes.
to like, subscribe, and follow for our next episodes. Love you. Bye.
Bye.